Welcome back, everyone, to your podcast, our podcast, the Popular Side Podcast. Uh, it has been a while since we've been in this format.
Yep.
But as usual, it's still Yinka Yusuf.
Hello, people.
Welcome back, welcome back.
Thank you very much, bro.
And I'm still Akin Adike. Yinka, it's
Yes,
been a
sir.
while. I think you and I have not been together on the podcast for about a month.
Yes, I want to believe
Okay.
so. Yeah.
And in the last 4 weeks, we've only had one episode, which you didn't show
Yes.
up for. So you wanna apologize to our loyal and faithful listeners and audience for abandoning them for the past month.
So, apologies, people. A lot of things, more important things, kind of happened. Work was one of them. Ramadan was the other.
Work was a big part of it for you.
Work was a big part of it. So, and Ramadan was the other. And unfortunately, when Akin came to Lagos, I mean, if we had recorded, it would have been during work hours. So
you were getting crushed.
I was getting crushed. You guys would believe it. I was getting crushed. But having said that, Gilbert, who stood in for me, he did a fantastic job, right? And I can say right now that I'm sure that's not the last time you hear or see Gilbert on this on this show. A friend of mine said, "Oh boy, is this guy Yoruba or he doesn't understand?" Because Gilbert kept on chipping in Yoruba from time to time during the episode.
Yes.
And I'm like, we all went to school together, you know. Somebody that spent how many years in the learning? 6 years. 6 years in the learning. Of course, the Yoruba will be Yoruba is perfect. His Yoruba is almost as good as mine and yours, Aki. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gilbert did a fantastic job. You did a decent job too. Well done,
Yes,
guys.
it did.
I was impressed. It would have been nice if it was 3 of us, but yeah.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
We may need to run it back with the 3 of us. We may need to run it back. Yeah, so that way he can focus, because he had focused all his attacks on just me. Now he can spread it out to 2 people, you know, and not just me.
He threw some jabs at me. I saw it. You can't get Gilbert in a room and he will not throw jabs at people.
This is true.
Who he is. That is who he is, right? He threw some jabs at me, but it's all a good fit. This is my guy. He did a fantastic job.
All right.
And most of the takes that he had, especially on the Super Eagles, fantastic. Loved it.
Yeah,
good insight.
I would agree.
Well done, guys.
I would agree. So I think so far, all our 3 guest episodes have been fantastic. Obviously Peter Rufai goes without saying on so many levels. And Ro felt like we were back in Yinka's living room and just,
I tell you,
shooting the breeze. Yeah, just shooting the breeze. I feel like the Gilbert episode would have felt exactly like that if you had been around, but without you, we try to do the best we can. I thought it was great. And I know you enjoyed watching it because you were, as you were watching, you were commenting on text.
I was commenting.
Yeah. So I knew you did. So I'm glad we could do that. All right. So Yinka, before we move forward, you need to wrap up our giveaway. It's been way too long and it's been out there, so I'm going to turn it over to you. All you, go for it.
Thank you very much, Akin. So we have come to the end. Maybe not totally the end. So before I announce the winners, I would love to seek people's indulgence on a particular matter. I mentioned this earlier on, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. We will be extending the PS5 portion of the giveaway. Yeah, we will be extending that to the larger pool of subscribers. One, and we'll now be giving that away when we clock 1,000 subscribers, right? And then we'll just randomly pick somebody from the pool, and the person will get a PS5. Apologies, guys, we didn't get as much. How do I put it? As much people, as much potential winners as we envisaged. Yeah, and we thought that wasn't really fair to the large pool of subscribers that we had. But however, we are going ahead with the winners of the jerseys. Okay, so drum roll. I have 4 winners here. Um, the first winner will be at Dimas DMI. Congratulations, you're a winner. The second person is Alexander 9519. I hope I'm not murdering people's names here. Congratulations, you're the second winner. And the third winner is Dr. Sabo. Dr. Sabo, congratulations, you are the winner. And the last winner is Remnant Alive TV. Remnant
Okay.
Alive TV. Congratulations, you are a winner. So there's 4 people that I've mentioned. You're winners of jerseys. So what will happen is you please reach out to us via email address. You'll see it on the screen. The popular site podcast at gmail.com. I mean, you'll see it on the screen. Please reach out to us on the choice of jerseys that you want, right? That's one, and also how we can deliver the said jerseys across.
And your
Okay,
size. And your
and
size.
your size. Thanks,
Okay.
Aki. And your
All
size.
right.
So congratulations, guys, and please, the more subscribers we get, we put that into the randomizer for the PS5, and when we clock 1,000 subscribers, we'll release that up. That's it,
All
Aki.
right. Great. Thank you, Yinka. Yinka, this was all you, so I appreciate you doing it. So the beauty of doing this with smart people is, when your strengths can accentuate each other's strengths, but also they can cover your weaknesses. This is something I could not have done. So I would have botched it. I don't have the patience. I no longer have the organizational chops, so there's a reason I just leave it to Yinka to do this. We all have different strengths and weaknesses. So thank you, sir, for doing that. Okay. So,
Yeah.
Yinka, I
Yes,
have
sir.
missed talking to you. Um,
Same here.
so I can't wait to get into this. So go
Talking
on.
sports. Talking
Yeah,
sports. Not
talking
just
sports
talking
because
to
we
me.
we we because we've talked live. We even
Yeah,
saw each other in person. We saw each other in
we
person.
we
Yeah,
saw that in
in
Lagos. Yes.
yeah, but talking sports. Okay, so Yinka, we're gonna go straight into our worthy mentions. There's been a slate of firings in the coaching ranks.
Yeah.
And Yinka, there's even been more since we did this agenda, right? that we didn't update. So let's talk first about Juve and Leipzig, and then we can talk a little bit about Southampton because I have something for Southampton later. So I'll let you take the Juve and Leipzig ones, and then we can talk about Southampton.
Yeah. So when Motta came on board, you remember we were all like, "Wow, he did a fantastic
Yeah,
job at Bologna. I'm sure he can transition that to a fantastic job also at Juve. He's a young coach, have a young team
yeah,
relatively, and so they can grow together." That was what we were talking about. That was what we envisaged. So Juventus right now they are sitting fifth on the log table in Syria with 56 points. They're in the running to they'll be an European team, probably Champions League. They can get to fourth or any of the other two. Yeah, he's had some bad luck with injuries to key players. So at the time he didn't have a striker. He played like 4 or 5 games without a striker. I remember Akin
yeah,
until they got Kolomwani on loan, and Kolomwani came in and did some damage for them. But in general, I was surprised. I was shocked that he was fired. I was. I'm like, there are not too many young, decent coaches out there. Y'all had one. Y'all just needed to be patient with him. Yeah. So what was his record like? Right. So 13 Serie A victories out of 29 rounds. Right. And 4 in 10 Champions League games. So that's a 43% win percentage. Yes, it's not that good, but given the challenges that he faced during the season, Akin, I would have thought you would have given him time. I mean, part of it is he's a young coach. The team is new. The team is
yeah.
also young. There'll be some forming and numbing problems, and you expect people to grow together, and then you expect to deliver results. He did a fantastic job with lesser quality players at Bologna, right? So I guess what the Juve hierarchy is looking at is Bologna is ahead of Juventus on the league table. So maybe it wasn't the coach that was the problem. Maybe it wasn't the coach that was good at Bologna. Maybe it was just the players. I think that's what they were looking at. They were like, let's cut our losses and move on early enough before we. I would have given him more time. I'm always a fan of giving coaches more time. Yeah, it's not easy for you. See, we have teams, we have people that work for us. In every team that you form, this is normal. There is that forming and numbing process, which is people will, characters coming into the pool together, people will challenge each other, and then you find a common ground. This is how I can work best with this guy. This is how I need to treat this person. This is this person's strength. This is that person's weakness. Let's say I can then, harness everybody's skills to the best, to the best advantage of the team. That needs time. And I was so surprised that Juve, that they did this. I thought they were in it for the long haul. But hey, I'm shocked. But 43% win percentage, maybe not the best. But it is what it is.
Okay. No. Keep going. Keep going with Leipzig.
Okay. So Leipzig also they fired Rose. Leipzig, I think that's the name of the coach, isn't it? It's Rose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's Rose. So Leipzig this season the expectation is they should be challenging Bayern for the Bundesliga.
That was our expectation as well.
That was our expectation.
Marco Rose. Yeah. Marco Rose. Yeah,
right. Marco Rose. So right now they are 5th on the Bundesliga table with 45 points. Bayern is 68 points at first. 68, 45, that's a 23-point gap. Yeah? And given the players that Leipzig have, it's almost the same set of players last season. There's no particular acquisition, but they were young players that once again people expected that you will grow. I mean, the team will grow with the coach and become better. But I think they've taken a step back this season. There's been no particular. I can't think of any significant injury that's happened to them. Openda has been fit all season. Shesko has been fit all season. Yeah. So for them to be, I don't see the excuse. They're languishing in 5th. Their goal difference is 9. Guess what Bayern Munich's goal difference is? 54.
50. Yeah.
54. So to some extent, I think sacking Marco Rose, in my opinion, is a bit more justified than Thiago Motta's. Yeah. And you know what Leipzig is. Leipzig is a youth buying and selling club. Yeah.
And selling. Yeah.
Yeah, they're conduits. So they're more of a business, than a team that is really saying I want to be the best in Europe, if I can put it that way. Yeah. But at the same time, they have their eye on the Bundesliga. At least we should be challenging. Yeah. Because right now, I don't think this season has helped the stock of any player, right, in that Leipzig team. Shesko was almost going to Aston in January, decided to sign a new contract. Has Shesko really blossomed this season? Yeah. Openda is having a worse season than last season in my eyes. Yeah. So in general, I believe to some extent the Leipzig hierarchy might be justified in sacking Rose. What do you think?
So let me start with Rose. So I think what may have doomed him is their performance in the Champions League.
Yep.
Because I kind of mentioned it. I was paying attention to them. You know why? Solely because of Shesko, right? Benjamin Shesko. And I'm like, the other RB, Salzburg, were on the same number of points as Leipzig. That's not good. You know what I mean? That is not good. So I think that was what doomed them. I believe they were in the semifinals of the DFB, Pokal, the FA Cup in Germany.
Yeah.
Before he got fired, it was like days before the semifinal. So underperforming in the Bundesliga, pretty much disgraceful performance in the Champions League. I believe going into the final day they were on 3 points. and I don't recall whether they won their last game or not, but they were on 3 points going in, which is they were, right at the bottom, right? So that just tells me you shouldn't have been in there. You're really a Europa or a conference team, and that's disgraceful. So I think that was what did him in. What did Motta in my opinion, was the club hierarchy. Again, remember at the beginning of the season when we were talking about Motta, I compared him a lot to Vincent Company. Not because they have the same style, not because they're the same guy, but because they're working for crazy people. They're both working for crazy people who don't think you can rebuild. You don't rebuild at Bayern, you don't rebuild at Juve. You're supposed to be on top forever. Real Madrid doesn't rebuild. Barcelona doesn't rebuild. In the year of Barcelona's rebuild after Messi, what did Xavi do? He took them and went and won the league. You know what I'm saying? And then he promptly got fired the season after. So there are some clubs in the world that do not rebuild. Okay? Messi come, Messi go. Ronaldo come, Ronaldo go from Juve. They don't care, right? Everybody's injured at Real Madrid. They don't care. You have to stay on top. So Motta is doing a good, decent job, but they didn't hire you to do a good, decent job. You do a good, decent job, even at Napoli, that's okay. Because Napoli just started competing for titles. Lazio, absolutely. But not a Juve. Not a Juve. That's what I think anyway. So Yinka.
Yes, sir.
We have to talk about Southampton.
Do we?
So one, they're relegated. They broke a record. I think you and I never thought in our lifetime that Derby County's record would be broken. But they did. So, and what am I talking about for those who are not familiar? So, when Derby County went down, I forget how many points they finished with. I think it was the fewest ever in the Premier League era. But Southampton may yet, I think Southampton may yet surpass that record, number of points. But Southampton have gone down with 7 games to go. That is the highest number of games to go that anyone has ever been relegated, in the history of the English Premier League. I don't even know where to start from. At the beginning of the season, we thought they had a decent team. They did okay in the playoffs, coming up from the championship. And then they went and got Aaron Ramsdale, who has now been relegated a 4th time.
Okay. So, a couple of things. They need 2 more points to avoid having the worst Premier team points, overtaking Derby. So Derby right now,
Okay.
I don't have the number, but I think it's 2 more points. I can get the details later on. So they have how many games to do that? Is it 6 games or thereabout? Right?
I want to say 7, but keep going. I'll check.
I can quickly check that. Yeah, so they have quite a number of games to avoid that.
Yeah, they've played 31. They have 7 games.
They have 7 games to avoid that.
Yeah,
so
they've won 2 times. They've won 2 times in 7 games, Yinka. I'm sorry, in 31 games. 2 times.
Let's do something interesting, Aki. I'm gonna run through the 7 games right now, and you just let me know what you think. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Southampton and home to Villa. That's 0 points.
Lose. That's 0 points.
Southampton away to West Ham. That's 0 points.
Lose. Yeah.
Southampton at home to Fulham. That's 0 points.
0.
Leicester Southampton is the only opportunity. Now,
they're both gonna be relegated, so it doesn't matter.
So my point is, Southampton are away to Leicester. They need 2 more points, like I said. So I can give them. That's a game they will look like and will be like, we should be able to get something from that game. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Next game, home to City. Southampton home to City. Yeah. That's 0 points.
Yeah, that's 0.
Southampton away to Everton. That's 0 points.
Mhm.
Then Southampton at home to Arsenal. That's 0 points.
That might be
So
the only one they win, but keep going.
but that's it. So I can, out of the 7 games that I've listed right now, the only one that they can get 3 points, yeah, is away to Leicester.
Hmm.
So that tells you that they are. If you ask me, I think they're not going to get the 2 points they need. I'm sorry.
Wow. I think they will. I think they'll find it somewhere. I think Ramsdale will stand on his head one game and just refuse to be beaten. But we'll see.
I,
Well, but we
I,
should definitely
I,
circle back on that.
I don't think that will happen. That their record, their last 5 games, they've only drawn 1 out of 4. That's what I'm looking at
Mm.
here, right?
Okay.
So, so if I, based on what I've read out now, you can see where this is going. Yeah.
Mm.
But we'll circle back to this. They fired their
Okay.
coach during the mid-season when they brought in this new guy, this their new coach, who,
Mm.
when he came on board, he had the usual IGG, yeah. And what then happened? The guy just disappeared. The team just stopped. The team stopped playing. Yeah. They
Hmm.
have a couple of youngsters with them that they can quickly pawn for good money. This their winger, is it Diblin or so? I think that's his name. He's a good player. I think they should sell him. They shouldn't go back with them to the championship. Yeah. Chelsea is looking for a goalkeeper. Say all you want to say about Ramsdale is better than the whole lot they have at Chelsea. Yeah, way better than
Mm-hmm.
the lots they have at Chelsea. I think Chelsea should get him. Yeah. Just pawn out your good players and take the not too good ones back to the championship and try and come back as soon as possible. Yeah. And don't repeat the
Yeah.
same mistake that you've done now. Don't repeat it when you come back again. Okay.
I don't know. That's gonna be tough. But so you might be wondering why I was so excited to talk about Southampton. You want to guess?
Why?
They fired their manager. Twice they
Uh-huh.
fired their manager this season.
Yes.
Guess who they played before that firing happened? Each time.
Who?
Who did they
Liverpool?
play? Who did they play on Sunday?
Who did they play
Tottenham
on Sunday?
Hotspurs.
Ah,
So this is doubly exciting for me because the owners of Southampton were like, "We've won 2 games all season. We didn't
yes.
make a move. But how dare you lose to Spurs?"
Ah,
So
Spurs,
the first,
Spurs, Spurs is another discussion on its own. On I
so
anyway.
you got Spurs even for Southampton. Even for Southampton, Spurs was the bridge too far. You can't lose to Spurs. So that's the only reason I wanted to talk about this. I don't care about Southampton. They get relegated, they come back. I don't care. But
Yeah.
they lost 2 managers. Each time it was after losing to Spurs. The owners were like, "That's it. I've had it. Can't lose to Spurs. Gotta go." Okay. You know, now I'm done.
Madness.
Now I'm done. Now I'm done. Okay.
For all you care,
Inca.
Spurs might then fire their coach and go pick up this evangelic guy and say, "Hey,
Oh my
come and
God.
be it's
That
that's the Spursy thing to do. You know,
it will be the most Spursy move ever. But okay,
that's who they are. Anyway, let's move on.
we're gonna move on. Is anyone else fired their coach that we need to react to? I think that's all I
Uh,
had.
I think that's
Okay.
all I have to. So let's
Okay.
let's move on.
But we should talk about someone who may be on the hot seat and whose
Yes.
star has dimmed a little bit. The
Yes.
shine is off a little, and that is one Xabi Alonso.
Mm-hmm.
A PSP favorite. Who could have been the Man U manager this season? Who
Yep.
could have been the Liverpool manager this season?
Mm-hmm.
Who could have been the manager at many different places this season?
Yes.
Who could have been the Bayern manager this season?
We could be taking over from Ancelotti pretty soon.
So, but it's the shine of Xabi Alonso a little bit.
Um, I think Xabi is a victim of his previous successes.
Absolutely.
That Leverkusen run last season and the Bundesliga win is like, that is success on steroids, right? Now is you know you were at the peak. Now you are down in a major lull, yeah, and people are now wondering, were you a one-hit wonder? Was that a flash in the pan? That's the question on people's lips as it pertains to Xabi Alonso. Now here's the thing, yeah. I mentioned this before, Akin. They didn't really shake things around that much in the off season. In terms of acquisition, it was only, I think they got Alex Garcia, the Spanish midfielder. I can't think of any other thing that they did. Yeah. See, complacency kicks in if you don't inject fresh blood, fresh people to kind of, keep that fire burning. Yeah. Um, so I think that was the mistake that Leverkusen as a club made. But do I think the coaching skills of Xabi Alonso has diminished in any form? In my personal opinion, no, I don't think so. I just think last season, Murphy's Law, they had reverse Murphy's Law going on for them. Anything that could go well went well for them. Every single thing. Yeah? So it will be almost impossible, yeah, for you to repeat what you did last season. But that's the expectation that everybody's looking at. They're thinking, yeah, you did this last season. You should maybe not fall off that much. You should still be doing something similar. But the pin in the balloon for me was the exit from the Champions League. I thought, irrespective of how the season has been, I thought that particular two-legged tie will be where Leverkusen will be like, we might have messed up all through the season, but this particular one, we're not gonna let you big brother us. And unfortunately, the reverse happened. They were completely big brothered by Bayern. Completely big brothered by Bayern. Yeah. Um, so I sit on the fence on this, just to answer your question loosely.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
sit on the
yeah.
fence on this. He's a good manager, right? I believe so. The output that is given compared to the quality of players that he has is not is like is night and day. They don't have a superstar. They don't. There are so many players on that Leverkusen team. They'll barely make the first team of some of that top European clubs. If you get what I mean, yeah.
No, I
So
get it. I get it. I get it.
so that's the situation that I have. Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yinka. So,
Yes, sir.
does he get fired or does he stay?
Either way, I don't think he'll be Bayern Leverkusen's manager by next season.
Ouch. Ouch. Okay.
I don't think he'll
Okay.
be Bayern. And I don't have any whatever to this. I think Bayern Leverkusen, they might look at him and say you've underachieved. And there are so many other clubs that are looking for a young coach that they can build with, right? I'm not a betting man, but I'll put money on Xabi Alonso becoming the next Real Madrid manager. I'm serious about that. He's Spanish. He's played
Okay.
for Madrid. They love him. Blah blah blah. Madrid are not happy with Carlo Ancelotti right now. They're not. And if you ask
So,
me, who is most likely primed to take over, yeah, I think it's Xabi. That's my personal
okay.
opinion. But let's see how it goes.
Okay. Yinka, I think this is a good segue to something you've been holding on to.
Yes, sir.
You had an interesting conversation with a Real Madrid fan. So let's not wait until we get to the preview. Let's do it now. So
Yeah.
you want to just talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah. So one of my younger nephews, he's a Real Madrid fan. So he was in my place. He came to my house yesterday, and we got talking. I'm like, what's the Real Madrid Arsenal game going to look like? He's like, Uncle, I don't trust Carlo Ancelotti. He said, what do you mean? He said, a lot of people, the wins that we had, the few wins that we had, is kind of, people look at him and they ignore all his negatives. They just kind of focus on the positives. So I'm like, every team will kill for to be who you are right now. But he now said, maybe not. Maybe not we Madrid fans. We've seen better in the past. And I'm like, okay, go ahead, say more. And the young man goes into he said he went into like, he just mentioned a couple of things. I'm like, you know what? Let's break this down one by one. So he sent me a couple of things. So he said there are records, negative records, that have never happened before in Madrid that Carlo Ancelotti is about to set. Yeah? And shout out to my young cousin. I know he watches this. So thank you for sending this to me. Yeah, you provided a bit of content. So I'm just going to read this out, right?
Okay, go for it.
So he said, ever, Valencia have won versus Real Madrid at the Bernabeu for the first time since 2008. That was Valencia's win over the weekend. Because I was complaining that, maybe they didn't start their first team. He said, Uncle, I watched the game. You didn't. They started their first team. Right? So this is not, they're keeping, this is not the same thing that Arsenal did against Everton.
played, Vinicius
Everybody played.
Yeah.
That's the first time since 2008 that Valencia will win at Madrid. Okay. Maybe not that egregious. Let's move on.
17 years.
In 17 years. He said, Real Madrid have lost a La Liga game against Athletic for the first time since 2015. That's Athletic Bilbao.
Yeah.
For the first time since 2015. Real Madrid have lost against Liverpool for the first time since 2009.
Against who?
Liverpool. For the first time since 2009. And he said Real Madrid have lost 2 matches in a row at the Bernabeu for the first time since 2020 in 5 years. Yeah? And he now goes ahead to say, in general, right? Carlo Ancelotti as a coach, he has only won 6 titles in 30 years.
6 league titles.
6 league titles in 30 years. And for a manager that has managed AC Milan, Juventus, Chelsea, Bayern Munich, Napoli, PSG, the only team that he has managed that is not top bins is Everton.
Fiorentina, Everton, yeah.
Fiorentina is above Everton. But I get your point, yeah?
Ooh, yeah, okay.
And he said, this is a horrible record, right? That Carlo is taking the glory, where in actual fact the glory is not attributable to him. Let me just summarize what that was more or less the summary of what the young man was saying. That put almost any coach in that same situation, yeah, that the quality of players that Madrid have, right, that is what is delivering the results, not necessarily the quality of the coach that they have. But I'm like, Real Madrid are resilient. He said that is innate in most of the players they have. The players they have are... So I now told him, so you're telling me that Madrid, that resilience is not from Carlo Ancelotti? He was like, yeah, that resilience has been there. Under Zidane, it was there, right? That is not something that Carlo brought to Madrid. Is always been part of Madrid, and you got the best midfielder in the world 2 years ago in Jude Bellingham. So maybe not necessarily the best, but I get your point.
Maybe not the best.
You got the best striker last year in Kylian Mbappe. So it's not. We've been injured still. Yet we have top defenders. Might not be world class defenders, but we still have top defenders lining up. You have a Traoré who was the best player in the French league, right? We should not be where we are. We should not be languishing in playoffs, right? In the Champions League, yeah, and we should not be battling with Barca. I said, okay, young man, maybe you're taking it too far. Then he now said one last thing, Uncle. He now said one last thing. He said, while he was at Bayern Munich, right, that the lack of tactical input into the team, it got to a point that the Bayern players were doing extra sessions without Ancelotti. Without Ancelotti. So I said, okay, so the bottom line is, I think this goes back to your point. You're a bit ageist when it comes to, this, when it comes to coaching.
I am.
So I'm like,
when it comes to life in general. Yeah.
so I'm like, maybe this is Akin's point all along, right?
Yeah.
I think Carlo has gotten to the point, and I said this it's a couple of weeks back
Yeah.
also. I think he should just walk away from Madrid at this point. Yeah, I think it's gotten to the point where his coaching um, capabilities no longer match the current reality that we have. You know,
Okay.
so that was an interesting discussion from the young man.
Okay.
Just thought I should share with everybody.
So very interesting. So remember I said this when they had their little blip. I said, don't come back, just leave now. You said end of the season. I'm like, no, now go. Because for me, the players choose themselves. The team chooses itself. It doesn't matter who manages Real Madrid. I truly believe that. Not so Barcelona. Not so Barcelona. Barcelona, in my opinion, they're too young. Barcelona is still becoming what they're gonna be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Madrid went and bought already made superstars, right? So for me, it's very different, right? And then style of play matters more to this current Barcelona team than this current Real Madrid team. What did I say at the time? I'm like, I was believing that Carlo Ancelotti was the right person to meld this team together. You had an issue. You're like, Mbappe coming in before the beginning of the season, right? Mbappe coming in, Vinicius, what's it gonna, how are they gonna work? I'm like, oh, it's Carlo. He'll figure it out. It's the right guy for the job. Within a couple months, I'm like, he's not the right guy for the job. He should leave. You should bring someone else in because, in my opinion, I'm still not sure that Zidane is a great coach. But the one thing I know for a fact is he knows attack. He knows offense. He was the first coach in the world to be like, Ronaldo, you will no longer be on the wings, and that's it. You are now a number 9, period. Okay. Fans were not clamoring for it. No one thought it was the right move. That was the era of the non-scoring number 9. Remember, that was the era of the Girouds of the world, and and that was where Firmino and them came on. And Zidane went the other way and said, I'm going to put my goal scoringest guy in there who does not do any number 9 stuff ever.
Yeah.
Ronaldo doesn't bring other people into play. He doesn't do any of that. Ronaldo was pretty much Inzaghi under Zidane.
But what he did kind of increased the lifespan of Ronaldo. If he had stayed on the wings, he would have stayed on the wings. He would have broken down. He would have broken down. Absolutely.
So Zidane he thought his way through this. Like, look, we're getting rid of 2 classic number 9s, Benzema, and what's the other guy that came, the Argentinian guy,
Higuain.
Higuain,
Gonzalo
and then we're
Higuain.
just gonna go to this guy. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think Ancelotti, I think it's time to go. The ageism thing, Mourinho is the best example for me, right?
Oh, my guy.
No, because this man was the best coach in the world. I don't like him. I don't appreciate him, but he was the best coach in the world. I cannot deny it. He's no longer. He hasn't been in about 10 years. He hasn't been in about 10 years. Yinka, I think the era of a manager staying at one club for 30 years is over. I think staying for 20 years may be over. I would argue staying for 10 years may be over.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is about to be Pep's 8th season. Next season is going to be his 8th season. I think this is his 7th, I think. Is the longest he's ever stayed at any job. And before this, he's never stayed anywhere more than 3 seasons. Right?
Okay, do you think Pep staying at City is as a result of, if I leave, where am I going to go? Is that what it is?
I think
Maybe
it's
he has
money.
Exhausted.
I think
Maybe
it's
he has
money.
exhausted the options.
It's money.
Who else can pay him?
Nobody.
So that's my point. The people that could were Bayern, Barca. He's not going to go to Madrid. Serie don't pay their coaches that well. So is this not more or less a situation of? It's definitely not good. Well, maybe PSG.
It won't.
Maybe PSG.
It won't.
Because it's a
It will be bored. He will be bored. What's he gonna do playing Lorient playing Lorient on a Friday evening. No.
So that's my point. So if he then leaves, right, or if he decides to leave, where is he going to go to? Forget the money.
Newcastle.
Let's assume that they will pay whoever is going to has the same financial strength as the strong people at Etihad, at City. Yeah. Do you think he will? Where? Newcastle? He will always tell you, I don't want to
Brazil
coach
national team. That's it. That's the only thing I could think about.
So why not Spanish national team than Brazil national team then?
Because Spain has a manager, they're not looking for one. Brazil wants Carlo Ancelotti. I do not understand why, but Brazil wants
Brazil have a problem. Good. We're going off tangent, but Brazil, things have changed. This is like the sun rising in the west,
right? Instead of the east.
Instead of the east. Brazilian football, the Joga Bonito is dead. It is dead. I watched Argentina-Brazil during the international break, Akin. Argentina were playing the way Brazil usually play. It was like, and your guy, what's his name? Vinicius, Raphinha, all of them, nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
For Joelinton to be starting in Brazil's midfield, it tells you a lot. Joelinton, the same Joelinton.
It's not a midfielder, and it's not a good player.
He's not a good player. He's a brute. That's what he is. And he's starting in the Brazilian national team midfield. That's an indictment on the whole of Brazil. What happened to your Joga Bonito? What happened to playing skillful football? What happened to people wanting to watch Brazil? That game was an eyesore. Argentina ran rings around them. Rodrigo De Paul, who is not even a good midfielder, controlled the midfield. Can you imagine a midfield of Enzo, Rodrigo De Paul, and this Liverpool boy, who's a good player by the way, McAllister. Those three, they ran rings. Messi didn't even play, and Argentina
Messi wasn't on the So I got to say something real quick. That midfield is the most Walkman-like good midfield in the world. Yeah, like McAllister is good, but I mean, is McAllister.
A bunch of Omonishes. That's what they are.
They're water carriers. Let's call it what it is. They're water carriers. And what's his name? Rodrigo De Paul. He's quite literally a hack. He is like the Michael Essien of today. He's a hack. That's what it is. Yeah, he can run the ball a little bit. He can do a few things. But so that is a Walkman-like midfield. Not like all of us who support European clubs or whatever. If that was our starting midfield in our respective clubs, we would not be happy. Let's call it what it is. We would not be happy. That is not a great midfield for a 38-game season. But I would say this, Yinka. I think for Brazil, and we've totally gone off a tangent, but let's wrap the Brazil side of this. I think Neymar papered over the cracks for many years because with all the issues he had in his respective clubs, it was always consistent for Brazil. It was brilliant for Brazil, and it was productive for Brazil. So he papered, he pretty much like fixed 3 different positions for them. It was a classic number 10. It was a scorer, and it could drift to the wings, So wherever they needed someone to cover, he covered, and it was brilliant. Like, look, the club thing would take some shine off of him, but he was beyond reproach for Brazil, right?
I totally agree.
And then there was no one, it was like Ozil for Germany, when Ozil was not as bright, but was like Ozil for Germany. Only he carried his own water, for he did his own work, he put his body on the line. He did all this stuff. And for a long time, people didn't realize how pedestrian Brazil were without him.
Him.
And now it's shown, and a lot of these Brazilian kids are going abroad way too early. Like they've lost that Brazilian identity, so they've become, I know a lot of Brazilian former internationals said this. They're playing like a European side, and that's not a compliment.
That's not a compliment at all. Anyway,
okay,
let's roll.
All right,
let's roll.
Yinka, let's stop going off on tangents. Okay, so let's see if we can make up some time here. All right,
that's not in our character, but we'll try.
Okay, Well, let's just talk about, the top 5 leagues. We're gonna not talk about League On because that's been done for
Let's
a
talk about
while.
League
Go
On.
on.
Officially
What do
now,
you?
PSG have been
Okay.
crowned champions.
Okay.
Officially. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
just we're not talking about them. We're
So
just
that's like
you know
3 months after we called it, right?
3 months after we called it. And what a pity! What a pity! Dembele definitely going to be the player of the season.
Yeah, the man
He's been
has been on
fantastic.
fire. It's been
He's
on
been
fire.
fantastic. He has
And
been.
honestly, Yinka, if he had just done it in the league and not translated to the Champions League, we may have looked at it like, oh, it's France, whatever. But
Yeah.
it's been on fire. Like
Yes.
just seeing. So Yinka, I always talk about balance, and I mean like physical balance. It's one of the most underrated skills in professional sports. It's not just in football either, in professional sports, right? And balance doesn't always mean you can use right foot, left foot. I mean, Ronaldo is a very one-footed player. Messi is a very one-footed player. But I'm talking of balance, the way you can juke left or right and control your body and all that. A healthy Dembele is one of the most balanced players there is in today's football world. When he's
Mm.
healthy, is a beauty to watch. I just don't know how long you can stay healthy and motivated.
Yeah.
So that we'll,
I'm
we'll,
happy.
we'll
I'm
see
happy
how.
for him. I'm
I'm
happy for
really
him.
happy for him. Yeah,
Really happy
and
for him.
it's not young anymore. He was young for a very long time, but he has an
Yeah.
old man's body with all those
Exactly.
injuries. So we'll see.
Exactly. We'll see.
Okay, so let's go real quick to the Bundesliga. We got Leverkusen still in second place. Um, Bayern on top. The gap is now just 6 points. They both played 28 times. Remember, to our viewers, the Bundesliga is only 18 teams, so you only played 34 times. So there's only 6 games left. Is there any chance in these 6 games that Leverkusen can close the 6 point gap?
Um, there is. I
Okay.
will say there is, uh, because we've seen Bayern, almost fumble or almost bottle some
Mm,
of the games that they played in the past 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
mm.
And also, Leverkusen almost lost. In fact, they won 4-3 eventually over the weekend.
Yeah.
But it was a close game for them. So over the last 5 games, Bayern has lost 1, they've drawn 1, and they've won 3. Leverkusen has won 4, and they've lost 1. Yeah. My problem or my concern is the goal difference. So they might be 6 points
Yeah.
behind, but with the goal difference that you currently have, I might as well add 1 point, so I can say it's
It's
7.
25. The difference between their goals difference is 25.
That's an extra point, Akin.
Yeah.
So that means the gap is actually 7. Now, if they
Yeah.
have 6 games to go, Akin, you're telling me you need Bayern to lose 2 and drop
Draw
1,
one
draw 1, and for Leverkusen to win out
to
all through
run
to
the
the end
table.
of the season.
Yeah.
I've not taken a look at the fixtures, right?
Mm.
But there are some. Last time I checked, there were some tricky games for Leverkusen. Really, really tricky games for them, right? Which I'm not sure. So let's even ignore what Bayern do. Let's even
Yeah.
assume Leverkusen take care of business on their side without really considering Bayern. There are some tricky games for them. Yeah. So it's not. I mean, Dortmund is still coming to Leverkusen. They're going to
Yeah.
Mönchengladbach. I'm quickly running through the list here. They're still going to Mainz. Leverkusen is going to Mainz. In fact, that's
Which
the
is
last game of the
fourth on the
season.
table. That's
Yeah,
fourth on the
that's the
table.
last
Yeah.
game of the season away to Mainz. Yeah. So for me, it's almost there. If you ask me to assign percentages to this question, that can Leverkusen still topple Bayern, I'll put it at 20-30%, frankly.
Okay. All
And
right.
it's more about
I'll put it at 10. I'll put it at 10%. I
it's
don't
about
know.
Leverkusen not even doing what they need to do, not
Yeah.
necessarily what Bayern, needs to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason I say that, Yinka, we've talked about the goals difference. Bayern have scored 81 times, considered 27, right? Leverkusen have scored 63 times, considered 34. Goals difference of 54 versus 29. That's a 25 point goals difference. That is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at the wins, draws, and losses, they're not that far away. They both lost twice, and the difference is 3 draws versus 3 wins.
Yep. That's
Right?
it.
3 draws versus 3 wins. That's where the 6 points come from, because they have the same number of losses.
Yep.
You know? So, but that just tells me Leverkusen let themselves down by not replenishing that squad. So my thinking is, they're thinking, hey, we're on the ascendancy. We barely had Boniface. Now we're going to have Boniface. Everybody would take a step up. But then you do that, and then you turn around in January and try to sell this guy. So I don't understand it. And you and I have talked about this. Boniface doesn't really fit what that team does.
Yeah. No,
You
not
know,
really.
it doesn't really fit what that team does. He had whatever he did in Belgium. That was all good, but it doesn't really fit. So this is one of those where you take the win and you sell him for as much as you can, and that's what they should have done last summer.
Yep.
That's what they should have done last summer.
I agree.
But
they
again,
didn't.
it's the lack of they didn't do the squad building well enough, in my opinion. And when you know who's coming up behind you, you know they're gonna be running at you. They should have done better. Okay,
They should have done
so
better. I agree.
let's move on.
Let's move on.
Let's do Serie A real quick. In Serie A, it's still I would say 2-horse race. You would
I agree.
probably try to argue that it's 3, but I hope you
No.
don't.
It's not 3.
Okay.
It's not 3. It's 2.
Okay. So it's Inter versus Napoli.
It's Inter Napoli.
So they've all played 31 times. Inter on 68 points, Napoli on 65. This is a lot closer than in Germany. But again, goals difference, the difference between them is 16. Inter has the superior one. And again, Inter have lost 3 times, Napoli 4 times. Same number of draws, 8. Inter have more win, 20-19. So that's where the 3 points come from. It's 1 win, 1 loss. That's the difference. So what do you think? This is as tight as it gets, right? Almost as tight as it gets.
Inter had the chance this evening, because they played today, just before we started recording. They were leading when we started, but the game I just checked now, it ended 1-1. So they dropped 2 points again. Or else this
Who were
would
they
have been
playing?
1 point. They played the 4th on the table, Bologna.
Okay.
Yeah.
Inter or Napoli?
Bologna.
Inter or Napoli?
Sorry, I said
Napoli,
Inter, right?
yeah.
Sorry, I meant
Yeah.
Napoli. Apologies.
Yeah, okay.
I meant Napoli. So the gap will have dropped to 1, but the gap is 3 right now.
Yeah.
And there lies my problem with Napoli. The first goal, beautiful goal by Sam Anguissa, the Cameroonian, and they just went into their shell and they wanted to protect the 1-0. And Bologna just kept getting more confident and more confident, and they eventually equalized. So going back to what we typically talk about, which is the goal difference. The goal difference favors Inter, but Inter have Champions League to worry about. Yeah. So I don't know. That might, if they beat Bayern over these 2 legs coming up, that might affect how they approach the Serie A for the rest of the season. Yeah. I know they have a deep squad. They probably have one of the deepest squads in Europe backing. Yeah. They do. You might not have star level players, but you have above average solid players, and they are quite they have them in lots. So that might affect how things pan out. But once again, if I go through the rest of the 6 matches that we have, there is no major. I've looked at so Inter is still going to Bologna. That's a tricky one. Yeah. Inter is going to Bologna. That's a tricky one. Inter is at home to Roma. That's another tricky one. Right? And Napoli seem to just they don't have any tough games that I can pinpoint. All the games that I see here, it seems Inter have the worst stretch, right? Rather than Napoli. So you never know. Inter still needs to play Lazio at home. Wow.
Sixth on the table.
That's the problem. And Napoli games that I'm seeing are just Napoli, Cagliari, Napoli, um, Venezia. These are normal games for Napoli. Wow.
Venezia getting relegated. Yeah.
You see my point? So, and Inter
Yeah.
are still going to Fabregas's Como. So,
Yeah.
Napoli have the easier running than Inter. So, add that to the Champions League situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might still be Conte magic at the end of the season.
Okay, so I got a couple things to say real quick about this. For on the Champions League side of things, I said I think before the draws were made for the quarterfinals, I said they might be the most complete team left in in the Champions League. Very underrated. People forget they were in the finals just 2 seasons ago, I believe. And they might be stronger this season. They might be that definitely deeper, right? They have experience. They're not. They don't shine bright, right? They don't shine bright, but they look like the classic cup team to me.
Yep.
Right? To me, they look like the classic cup team. There's definitely teams that I would fear less if my team went up against them in Champions League than Inter, right? So that's my take on Inter on the continent. Inter in Italy, here's the thing, Yinka. So we've talked about the top 2. From number 3 to number 8, Yinka, there's only 6 points between them. So the Serie A will stay competitive, possibly until the last day. And if you go down to the 9th position, Yinka, you're talking,
Milan.
10 points. Yeah, Milan, AC Milan. 10 points between number 3 and number 10. So again, remember I asked at the beginning when we first started the podcast, is the Serie A back? Or is this just a different level of mediocrity? Right? So, because think about it, when you can be competitive without being good. So I would argue that the Serie A is good because of what their teams are doing on the continent, right? I would argue that, okay, they've found a way to rebuild the league without spending hordes and hordes of money, right? Is what I would argue. So I think the Serie A is good. Maybe some big teams are not being as competitive as they should have been. Milan, Roma will come to mind. But, a top 2 that we know is really good because we know what Inter is doing. Juve almost went through. You know what I mean? So I'm like, this is not terrible. There's something going on in Serie A, but we'll see how it goes. I think you've convinced me that I was right initially when I thought Napoli could win under Conte.
Yeah.
So, that man is just too good. I mean, taking Chelsea from 10 to first, I've told myself I'll never doubt the guy because, he won't last more than 3 seasons. But in that second season with you, watch out.
So, Akin, here's my, and I agree with you, but here's my problem with Conte, right? So even if you look at the table, out of the top 4, right, they are the least. What am I saying? Top 4. Out of the top 6, so maybe top 5. They've scored 1 more goal than. It's only Juve that they've scored goals more than.
Yeah, right? They won't score goals.
And this is a Juve that didn't have a strike force for a while because everybody was.
I know, right? But they have the best defense statistically.
Yeah, statistically
in the league.
They've only conceded 25 goals. Yeah,
in 31 games.
They've only scored 48. So going back to the game that I saw this evening, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You scored first, right? Bologna was there for the taking. It's like their mentality just kind of switched, and they were like, "Let's protect this one goal lead."
Yeah,
I'm like, and this is my problem with Conte. Yeah, you need to evolve. He's getting to the threshold of your age-old people. Maybe that's what's his problem. You need to evolve, right? Yeah. I'm not saying you should disrespect your opponents, but at the same time, you should not disrespect yourself. You should trust yourself a bit more. Yeah, you can be a bit more offensive in your style of play. So they've dropped too many games this season that I thought they should have won. But hey,
For me, I think the ego. I think the ego is the shocking part of this, right? Because I know there was stuff going on with Osimhen, and I'm not a big fan of the kid, but someone who knows how to score 20 plus goals in a tough defensive league,
yeah,
and everyone knows you are a tough, ball breaking bastard, right? As a coach, I would bet on myself to be able to keep this guy in check, get what I need from him, and then flog him off to the highest bidder. I'm really surprised that he didn't do that. And for me, there was no reason not to do that. Okay, Osimhen and the owner, the De Laurentiis are fighting. Who cares? I'm gonna tell Osimhen, look, I don't even like the owner. Come with me. Let's go on this journey together. You think one Scudetto is good? Try two. I mean, you'll be untouchable once we win this second one. Let's go do this. And so I men's ego sometimes, man. I don't understand it.
The Osimhen bit surprised you. Let me tell you what was worse. It's the Kvaratskhelia one that's even surprised me more.
Oh, that's even worse. In January.
I'm like, sorry, what? Am I missing something here? And you're bringing a David Neres that is a worse player. No disrespect to the young man, but he's a worse player than Kvaratskhelia. Kvaratskhelia is way better than Neres.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, what are you? I don't. So is it that you had a fallout with Kvaratskhelia or what happened? That's
the man
most
doesn't
likely
speak.
what happened.
The man doesn't speak. You will never hear any recording of him bashing anybody. He does not speak. It doesn't speak. Have you ever heard him say anything controversial? He doesn't have
while he was at Spurs, though, he spoke. Maybe he
no,
spoke
no, no,
about
no, no,
Spurs.
No, Kvaratskhelia, not the coach.
Okay. I was wondering. I thought you meant
Conte doesn't shut his mouth.
He says all sorts.
Oh yeah, I'm talking to Kvaratskhelia. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It doesn't have, Anyway, okay, Yinka, let's keep going. We're gonna do La Liga, then do EPL. Okay.
Yes.
So in La Liga, let me go to my trusty table. My Barcelona are top of the food chain. 67 points. Real Madrid at 63. Atletico 60. And then Athletic Club 54. Yeah, Athletic Club is not going to win anything. So let's move on. But do we have a 3-horse race or just 2-horse race?
I think it's a 2-horse race right now. Okay. I think it's a 2-horse race right now.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's fair. I think we can just repeat everything we said about Conte without the flogging your best attacker. We can repeat everything for Atletico because Yinka, they have the best defense statistically.
Yep.
And they've only scored 49 times. So same story, different leagues.
And it's not for lack of firepower.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. They actually have.
That's the annoying part. That is what really, really pisses me off. It is not for lack of firepower. It's just you as a coach. You are just a negative footballer. Simple.
Yeah. Real Madrid have scored 63 times. You've scored 49. Barca have scored 83 times. You've scored 49. You've scored 49. And yes, the 24 goals against is really impressive. But with Barcelona, it's only 29 out of 30 games. With Real Madrid, it's only 31. It's only 31. And Athletic Club has the same goals against as you, 24.
So, but this is what I say, Akin. Offense at times is the best form of defense.
Yeah.
There's only one ball that we're playing. There's only one football that everybody will play. It's not as if you have your own ball, I have my own ball. If I'm holding on to the ball, what are you going to do with the ball, please? So sometimes offense might actually be the best form of defense. But not every time. I watch Atletico until a team scores, then that's when they realize,
they won't open up.
We can play some offense. And even then, they're more worried about conceding rather than them, scoring. It is only when it's now 5 minutes left, 10 minutes left, they will now throw the sink, the plates,
everything,
the bath water, they will throw everything at the opponent. I'm like,
Yinka, the king of mixing metaphors. I love it.
Just throw everything.
Okay.
The metaphor says everything now, or it means
Okay.
everything. So I'm just saying everything at this point. Throw it at them.
All right.
But it's not. That's not
We're
how you
gonna
play.
I'm gonna ask you very, very, very rapid fire things. Who's gonna win?
Yeah. La Liga.
Yes.
Oh, you know I told you everybody's taking turns to say I don't want to.
You're overthinking. You gotta say it. You gotta say it. They played 30 times. All three have played 30 times. 67, 63, 60. Who's gonna win? There's 8 more matches to go.
We still have an El Clasico, don't we?
Yes, we do.
We still have an El Clasico.
At Barca.
At Barca.
Yeah.
See, the way I want to do this, I'll answer your question, but the way I want to do this, I want to run through the fixtures just to see, right?
Okay, go for it.
Whether there are extra pitfalls for Barca, right?
Okay.
So, assuming Madrid win through, right? So that means they will win the El Clasico, and it takes the points down, the difference down. No, I'm just saying, them winning through means they will win El Clasico, and it takes the point down to 1, Abby.
1.
So these are the other games for Barca. There's away to Atletico, right? Oof. That's the last game of the season. There's home to Villarreal, penultimate game of the season. Then they are away to Espanyol. That's another tricky game.
That's a derby.
That's a Catalonia derby, yeah. That's a Catalonian derby. Then you have away to Valladolid. I don't think that would be a problem.
They should be relegated by then, if not sooner.
Then home to Mallorca. I don't think that's a problem. Yeah, and then they have home to Celta Vigo. I don't think that's a problem also. And away to Leganes.
Number 7 on the table.
And Celta Vigo. Okay, but you see what I'm saying, right?
I do.
So it is very, 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 very tough. If I come to you and I tell you, it's a tough one. But to answer your question, I would want Barca to win. Frankly,
I know that's what you want, but what will happen? I will answer the question. I will answer my own question.
Barca will win then, if that's the case.
So Barcelona will stay in the Champions League. Real Madrid will not, because Arsenal will take them out. So Real Madrid might have an advantage of not playing in the Champions League, after next week, right? But the only thing is, I don't see Real Madrid going to, the whatever we're calling the makeshift place Barcelona is playing this season, and winning. I just don't see this Real Madrid beating this Barcelona team this season at Barca. So I think because of that, and I don't see a draw either, I see a Barcelona win. So I think the gap is going to grow to 7. And once it gets to 7, the tricky part for me is Atleti, because Atleti would do better against Real Madrid. We've seen it, than they would do against Barcelona. But you never know. It's very unpredictable. If it's the last game of the season, I think Barcelona takes it, all jokes apart. I have some observations.
I think Barca take it too. I think Barca takes it.
I think so. I think so.
But I'm not subscribing to Madrid will be out of the Champions League and stuff like that. We'll talk about that.
You don't have to subscribe. You'll see. You'll be here.
That's not. But if they win, I'll be happy. But that's not what I'm looking out for. Okay.
By the way, we're recording on a Monday.
Yes.
And you're gonna see this. Audience is gonna see it on a Tuesday. Potentially being released as the Real versus Arsenal at the Emirates kicks off.
Yeah.
At 8 o'clock local London time. Okay, Yinka, let's turn to the EPL real quick. And the question is, do I have my trusty EPL table open? I do now. Okay. What will the top 4 look like at the end of this season?
Tough question.
Okay.
tough question. So I think 1 and 2 is cemented. It's sealed. I think 1 will be Liverpool, 2 will be Aston. Yeah.
Okay.
So what we're fighting for right now will be 3 and 4, right? And the people
Yeah.
fighting for 3 and 4, I will want to stop at Villa, right? So it's between Forest at 57 points and Villa, right, at 51 points. Okay?
Okay. That's fair.
Now, here's the thing. Newcastle have a game in hand because of
Yeah.
their whatever. So I don't know
Carling
what the
Cup.
game in hand, the Carling Cup. I don't know what the game in hand is. So let's assume they win. That means
I will
Newcastle
find
will
out.
actually Newcastle will be sixth. I mean, will be fourth right now, right? Because they're on the same points with Chelsea and they have a game in hand. So they'll be on 56 and they'll be fourth. Yeah, I think that is how the season would end. I think it's going to be Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, and Newcastle. I think that's how the season will end.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Chelsea and City and Villa will miss out on the top 4 position. I don't know who's going to be fifth out of those 3. I can't. I mean, if you ask me, I'm just. I
Yeah.
have. I don't know. And frankly, I think the 5th position goes into Champions League qualifiers right now, right?
They do.
I
This
think that's
season
it.
they do.
This
This season
season
they
they
do.
do. So that
Yeah.
battle is on between Chelsea, City, right, and Villa. Those are the people that
Okay.
are battling for 5th. I think it's going to be Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, and Newcastle. Yeah. What do you
Okay.
think?
So Yinka, I think that's a brilliant submission. And I think you've moved me a little bit. Okay, 2 things have moved me. What you just said and the idiocy that I saw after the Man U versus Man City game when the City fans who went to Old Trafford were applauding KDB. And I'm like, what are you applauding him for? There are 7 more games to go. There's 7 more games to go. You haven't won anything this season, as far as I remember. Did they win something and I forgot? They
No,
haven't won anything. You look like
they're still in the FA Cup
absolute.
though.
Okay, you're in the FA Cup. Whoopty freaking do, right? Um, I'm like, you have several more chances to applaud him at home. You have gone to the home of your fiercest rivals. They are horrible, right? They've played 31 times and have 38 points. Let me check. Yeah, 38 points. They've played 31 times and won 10 times. They've played 31 times and lost 13 times. They have a -4 goals difference, which makes them worse than last year, where they were -1 for more than half the season. Okay? And you show up with KDB. There is nobody on the Man U team that is fit to shine the boots of KDB. 0 in the entire squad. What are you applauding again? What are you doing? I was shocked. Okay, so between, again, your brilliant submission and the absolute nonsense I witnessed, I think I'm willing to say Man City are not ready to do anything.
Yeah.
That goes against everything I believe in because I believe in Pep. But I think Pep may have lost the ability to get a tune out of this team, right? Whether Erling Haaland is injured or not, Mamouche should be there. Mamouche is actually easier to shoehorn into a new system, in my opinion, because he's way more skilled than Haaland. And people don't kill me. I don't mean he can score more goals. I mean he's a better footballer than Erling Haaland. That shouldn't be controversial, right? You can move him around. He's way more mobile. Haaland is mobile for a big man and is really fast for any size man. You know what I mean? But he's not as nimble as a Mamouche, right? So Mamouche gives you more tactical flexibility than Erling Haaland does.
Yeah.
So if I'm Pep, I'm looking at this as my 7-game season. And I'm asking myself, am I still the manager that I think I am? Right now, I don't care about injuries. They're not as injured now as they were at the beginning of the season. They're not. I don't care. I don't care about your Ballon d'Or guy being out. You have more defense. No, Yinka, they have more defensive midfield options than anyone else in the top 6. I'm not talking of brilliance. I'm talking of bodies that can play defensive midfield. I'm tired of this City, everything has to be just right for us to perform mentality. You know what I mean? Like, if Gravenberch goes down, who plays holding midfield for Liverpool, Yinka?
Endo or McAllister.
Okay. Endo is like 2 feet tall. McAllister is even shorter. Endo is this big. It's a joke. You know what I mean? So I'm like, Konate went down. Liverpool didn't skip a beat. They didn't skip a beat.
Okay, I'm just marveled that it took you this long.
I'm tired of it.
Conclusion. But
I'm tired of it.
I told you since. I said City is in a soft reboot, and you're like, no, Pep.
No, but they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. Yinka is the point.
It's not a shouldn't be. I'm telling you the reality, what we see to our eyes, right?
I know, but okay, but can we agree? Can we agree? It's not injuries. It's not a lack of bodies. It's definitely not a lack of talent, because they don't buy terrible players. There's no bad player on City, Yinka.
But Akin, when I told you, right? So there are two things. In as much as we want to, and as Gilbert also alluded to this last week, in as much as we want to ignore, right, or want to underestimate the impact of Rodri, you will have to agree right now that, you know what, maybe this guy was doing more to the whole pulling the team together. You know, maybe he was doing more than that.
How many games had they played when he went down? How many games had they played when he went down?
Let me land now.
Okay, go for it.
I'm saying it's a couple of things. It's not just one thing.
Okay.
So that's one. Second bit is, I told you all since that Phil Foden, right, was benefiting significantly, right, from the presence of some people. Yeah? And everybody was, Phil Foden. So what has happened to Phil Foden this season? You can't just be good last season and this season. I told you last season. Phil Foden is not the player, right, that you are portraying him to be. He's a B player.
We saw it at the Euros.
They've asked him to be the A player. They've told him to be the A player, and he's hidden under the table. That's what he's done. So, but nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about the decline of Phil Foden, right? Also, KDB, I agree with you what you said. I don't see the reason why they're clapping for him. But KDB is a shadow of himself, and he has announced that he's leaving. Yeah? So, that's true. You guys are now seeing that, to some extent, it was the success of City is not 90% Pep and 5% every other thing. It has demystified Pep to a large extent to you guys, because y'all put Pep on this pedestal. I'm like, y'all have seen right now, right, that there is more to this stuff. There's more to City's success than just Pep only, because Pep is still the common. How do I put this now? Is the common factor is still there, and he cannot get this City. He can't get this City team to be in top 4, irrespective of everything that they've had. Arsenal has worse injury situation than City this season. Yet Arteta is still second. Yeah. So what is Pep's excuse? So you see what I'm saying?
Spurs have a worse injury situation than City, and they have all season. Yinka.
So you see what I'm saying? So this is what has happened to Pep. Pep has a style. He has bought players that have not really, really succeeded in the style. Savinho and Doku are not giving you, what's his name? Riyad Mahrez numbers. That's the truth. Whoever, Mamouche, everybody, they're not giving you the Julian Alvarez, right? Kovacic is not giving you as much as what's his name? As the injured guy, Rodri will give you, right? And their whole back four, they are now open. So almost every attack against City looks like it's going to be a goal, Akin. There's no shield. There's nothing. Almost every attack against City, you're like, oh, they're almost going to score. Ederson now looks very, very ordinary. So City needs to do a major overhaul. That's what needs to happen with them.
Okay, Inka. So, all right. So let's leave City alone. Let's talk about some other things going on in the EPL. Marcus Rashford. Remember when you laughed at me and you called me all kinds of names for liking this dude? I'll take my apologies whenever you're ready.
Now, what am I apologizing for?
Oh, because apparently Rashford is not dead. He looks good. He looks sharp. Okay. And he's contributing to a real team that is doing real team things. And I feel pretty good about this. I don't know about you, but I feel pretty good.
So why is it difficult for him to self-motivate himself then? Because
who says it was difficult for him to self-motivate?
Obviously, it wasn't a talent issue. We can see now the talent is still there, right? But when he was at United, was he playing the same way he's playing at? Was he giving the same effort? Don't let me say playing the same way. Was he giving the same effort that you see right now in comparison to when he was at United?
It's a great question. I would say it depends. And I'm not just giving you the lawyer answer, right? So what I would say is, players are different, right? There's some people who show up and you visibly can see them putting in the effort. You know what I mean? What's the best example? Like if who's a good example here? Like United captain Roy Keane, right?
Yes.
Former United captain. Yes. I've never seen Roy Keane play, and you wonder what is going on in his head on that day. No, shows up every day.
Another example.
N'Golo Kante shows up. Even our friend Gary Neville, when Gary Neville had no more legs, he was still putting in visibly what we would call effort. Right? I don't know if effort is the right thing, but you could see it. Some people just show up on the screen. Jamie Carragher was like that. They just show up on the screen. But there are some players that are more guile than effort. The Mesut Ozils, the Eden Hazards. Now, some of them are also very lazy, right? Yeah. But it's not always laziness. Dennis Bergkamp was not lazy. But Dennis Bergkamp never looked like he was trying. Right? You see what I mean? It was never lazy. The people around him told you he was the first at practice and the last to leave. Right?
I hope you are not about to compare Dennis Bergkamp.
I'm not doing it. Doing it. Let me tell you what you tell me. Calm down, young man. Let me tell you what you tell me. I'm saying people's styles are different. Ozil was a guile guy and also very lazy. Right? He took himself out of games. He didn't take care of his body. Bergkamp was a guile guy who ate right, who showed up for practice at the right time, who was a consummate professional. Mm-hmm. I don't think I need a crystal ball or whatever, or to have been in the room to know that maybe Jadon Sancho, maybe Marcus Rashford are not Dennis Bergkamp.
Yeah.
I think we can make that. I think we know. Right? And I think if they were, I think Gary Neville would have told us, because he tells everybody's business that is associated with United. Right? So I concede that mistakes were made by some of my favorite players, Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford.
Don't even talk about Sancho at this point. We'll talk about Sancho next week.
I know. We'll talk.
Sancho's not now. Next week. But go ahead.
But my thing is, as an Arsenal fan, I'm saying I would rather have this guy playing through the middle than have Mikel Merino playing through the middle. That's all I'm saying.
Fair point.
Fair point. So I'm like, go get him. Go get him. And if you're gonna go get a 30-year-old used up England international anyway, why Sterling? Why not Rashford?
Okay,
That's what
Fair
I don't
point.
understand.
I
Yeah.
get that, but you were not pushing for a loan deal for Rashford. You were saying Arsenal should go buy
For
him
2 years, I've been
outrightly.
saying they should go get him. For 2 years, I've been
Outrightly,
saying go get him.
right?
Yeah, go
So
get him
so
for
so
2 years.
so here's my point. This is a Rashford
Mm.
that has a point to prove. That is, it feels as if his reputation has been challenged and he needs to defend himself. So he's motivated, right? Until I see him settle. I don't know whether Villa will agree to get him on board permanently, right? That is when I can say whether or not Rashford has gotten his groove back or he hasn't. Because right now he's playing like a player that has something to prove. But you
Okay.
don't need to have something to prove before you play well. That's my point. Rashford, when he was at United, was seen doing all sorts, not tracking back, walking.
Yeah.
He thought it was Messi. The only player that is allowed not to track back in football that I know is Messi, and Henry
And
perfectly
Hazard.
explained why.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Henry perfectly explained why. He said, guys, if you're asked to put the ball at your feet and run at defenders every time, you need time to rest. He needs to chill. He
Yeah.
has earned the right to walk when he's not the right not to defend. Messi has earned it. Not every footballer has that. Rashford didn't have that, and that was what he was presenting. That was what he was giving when he was at Manchester United. But all of a sudden, he crossed over to Villa. Had a rough couple of games when he came on board. But himself and Asensio, right? They've been fantastic for Villa on loan. And I'm on record. You heard this. I said the same thing. I said I get, not getting a striker, but there's no way Marcos Asensio should have left PSG and went to Villa.
Yeah.
He should be an
I
Arsenal
agree.
player.
I agree.
Arsenal needed him more than Villa needed him, right?
Very true.
So,
So
but I'm happy for Marcos. He's a stand-up guy. I don't know him personally, but based on the charitable work that he's doing,
yeah,
I
yeah.
love people. I love people like that. So I like him. I just didn't like, and I don't necessarily blame him. I think it might have been, character clashing and all those kind of stuff while he was at United. He didn't jive with some people. I get that, but you're a footballer every day. Bring your A game, irrespective. You're not playing for the coach. You're not playing for the club. You're playing. Have that self motivation. You're playing for yourself. You're playing for your name. You know. And also the fact that he got called back into the England national team. I think that
That's
kind of gave him
insane.
a new sense of, you know what, this guy is giving me a second chance. I can't
He
mess
didn't
up,
deserve it though.
right?
He didn't deserve
He
that
didn't
one.
deserve it.
Like it should.
He didn't
Yeah, it
deserve
should
it.
not have been called
But
back.
I,
I
I,
mean,
I get what Thomas Tuchel is doing.
Tuchel.
Tuchel is
Yeah.
saying, I'm challenging you. I know there's still a player in there. Come and prove to me that you can still deliver. And I think that has helped him even at Villa. So it's like he's been given a new lease of life, and now he's showing, shades of the old Rashford. So I would want to see this continue when he's settled, right?
Yeah.
When his place in the national team is guaranteed, when his place in Villa is guaranteed. If I then see the same thing, I'll come and I'll give you your apologies. But for now,
Okay.
I'll put those apologies on ice.
I think you should apologize anyway, and here's why. So,
Okay.
what's the similarity between Unai Emery and Mikel Arteta?
They're both Spanish.
They're both Spanish. They're both Basque people, but that's not what I'm talking about. They are
That's the only one I'm
maniacs.
aware of.
They are maniacs. They over prepare everything, right? And they don't carry passengers, and they don't suffer fools. They don't suffer fools. Like, no, I mean, as talented as Rodgers is playing for Unai Emery, as talented as he is, as successful as he is, do you see him just dancing around and not putting in the work, And he's kind of earned the right to act a fool, right? I mean, he's having like a uber successful, season as a young man, but he's tracking back. He's doing the one thing you can set your clock by is a Unai Emery team will work hard. A Mikel Arteta team they will work hard. They may not be successful, but they will do the work. So that's why I thought this was going to work. But at the same time, it's not working with Sterling. So what do I know? All right. So let's.
Sterling.
What do I know? All right,
Anyway, let's move on.
So Let's do our European tour real quick. Yinka, we're running out of time. So because we did this when you didn't show up for work last week, we're just going to run through this very, very, very quickly, right?
Yeah.
We got Champions League coming. So I'm not going to give my take because I gave it last week. I need your take.
Fair enough.
So Bayern versus Inter. Give us your take.
Inter, I think Inter win over 2 legs.
Over 2 legs. Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Inter's solid. They're solid defensively. I think that will. And they can nick it. They have Lautaro who can. He can pop out and score at any point in time. And I think they have a better midfield than Bayern. Frankly.
Do you remember what I said last week? I don't remember. Yeah.
What did you say? I think
I don't remember.
I think
I don't remember. Yeah, but it was the toughest one. We can
circle back. Yeah, I think you went for Bayern.
Yeah, it was the toughest one for me because
I think Inter wins.
Yeah, because I think Inter is one of the strongest sides left, and I don't remember what I said, but it was the toughest one for me. Arsenal versus Real Madrid over 2 legs.
My heart wants Arsenal to win, right? But the firepower that Madrid have and the inconsistency in Arsenal's defense and the fact that one of their main leaders, Gabriel, who is like the voice of that back line, the fact that he'll be missing, right? Saliba is the quiet one. Gabriel is the vocal one. Yeah? And I think Gabriel is the one that organizes that back four. Having Kivior there, Kivio's inadequacies were significantly exposed. Liverpool at home, a couple of games that, you realized, maybe Kivior is not a good substitute for Gabriel. Yeah? But it's who we have. I just think that Madrid firepower is my problem. Is my main problem. It's not as guaranteed as some people will say it is. Yeah, I think Arsenal are going to give a good account of themselves. I want Arsenal to win, but if I'm being very objective, I think Madrid are going to nick this.
So, Yinka, who was the man of the match in Arsenal's last match?
When you say last match, how do you mean?
Fulham versus game. Arsenal. Oh, sorry. Everton. Everton. Was Everton the last? Yeah. Kivior was the man of the match. I'm not gonna debate whether that was right or wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying.
But Kivior was against Beto and
I understand.
Kure.
How did Beto do against Liverpool?
We're talking Kylian Mbappe here.
I understand.
We're talking Jude Bellingham here.
Did they lose to Valencia?
Rodrigo here.
Did they lose to Valencia?
Rodrigo here.
Did they lose to Valencia?
So see, that's my point. But they lost 2-1 to Valencia. Do you think Valencia will beat Madrid over 2 games?
Do you think Valencia will beat Arsenal over any number of games?
No. So of course, you think Valencia can't beat Arsenal?
They can't.
Really?
I'm sorry.
When Bournemouth beat Arsenal, didn't they?
Don't care.
So I'm not gonna do this with you. I'm not gonna do this. Okay. Because football is crazy. All I'm just telling you right now, right, is that Madrid. No, I didn't talk about Madrid's defense, right? Because Madrid defense is suspect, but also the Arsenal offense has not been firing as it should.
It's mad suspect.
Yeah, but so it goes back to offense. And also the Madrid midfield is not that good. I get all this, but my problem is one-on-one. Individual brilliance of any of those front three is significant, right? In comparison to the people that will be playing on the other side. That's what I feel.
Okay.
If Arsenal wins, I'll be a happy man. I won't lie to you. I will be.
So,
but I think Madrid will win this.
So, what did they say? Class is, class is permanent. Form is fleeting. Class is permanent, right?
Yes.
When it comes to class, that Real Madrid attack, that front three, I mean, they're obviously better. Gilbert thinks Saka doesn't break into the front three. I think it's crazy. I think Saka does. I think if Saka played for Real Madrid, they would be a starter. They can figure out where they put him. I also think Rodrigo should be a starter, but, he doesn't always start. But I would always start him. I don't care. I would bench Vinicius for Rodrigo without thinking about it. That's just me personally. And I know you can do your face anyhow you want, but I know when Mbappe was coming in, you didn't think both of them should play together. And you would start Rodrigo. You would start Rodrigo over Vini if it means Mbappe gets to play. So don't do that. I know you. You would.
Okay.
You would.
I kind of disagree, right?
Because
Okay, so hear me out. Hear me out.
yeah,
So when you say starter, you're making it seem as if. Well, I agree with you in the sense that I think Saka on the left is better than Rodrigo on the left. Yeah, if you get what I'm saying.
I was
Because
thinking Saka on
Rodrigo,
the right.
sorry, wow, man, what's
Than
happening to me?
Vin. Yeah, you're thinking Vini.
Saka on the right. Yeah, sorry, Saka on right is better than Rodrigo on the right. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with that. Yeah.
So that in that sense, I can say, okay, maybe Saka should start ahead of Rodrigo, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then if I were the coach, the team will be different altogether, right?
Exactly.
I will
Yeah.
play Valverde and Birmingham in midfield.
In the middle.
Rodrigo in midfield. So the three will be Bellingham, Rodrigo, um, and Valverde,
And
right? Or
Valverde. Yeah.
Tchouameni or whoever. Depending on who I'm playing, then I will go Vini, Mbappe, or Mbappe,
Yeah.
Vini, Saka, if that's the case.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all I'm saying is Saka will not be a bench or a substitute per se. He will have more
Understood.
games that he will start. So that's why I was like, yeah,
So
I get what you're saying.
I'll make it even simpler.
Yeah.
If I had a 4 of Rodrigo, Saka, Mbappe, and Vini is who drops to the bench. Vini is who drops to the bench for me. For me. Because it's too similar.
Personally, I don't like Vini also.
I know.
What he brings to the table, going back to your analogy of what you bring to the table, what he brings to the table is not as good as what he takes off it. Yeah. So, but that left wing, personally, I think out of the three of them, out of Mbappe, Vini, and Rodrigo, the best person to play that left wing is actually Vini. If he takes away all his side, all his baggages, all this other stuff, Vini is the best left winger out of those three. Frankly.
The problem is when Mbappe came in, it changed everything, right? It's too similar to Mbappe in stature, in style, in where they want to attack from, all of that stuff, right? So when you had a real number 9 in the middle, Vini is more valuable. When your real number 9 is also like Vini, but anyway, we're going on a tangent again. So for me, Arsenal versus Madrid, it's gonna be Arsenal. Barca versus Dortmund.
Definitely Barca. Dortmund
me too.
But nah, nothing for Dortmund.
Me too. I think they're 11th. They're 11th in the Bundesliga. That is a shame. That is such a shame.
If Barca don't beat them, then I'm sorry. There's nothing else I can say.
That is such a shame. PSG versus Villa.
So this is going to be a very tricky one. Yeah, and it's because of both coaches, not because of the players they have on the pitch. It's because of Emery and what's his name, Luis Enrique. Yeah, but ultimately, here's where I think PSG would win against Villa. That PSG midfield against Liverpool over both legs, that's the best midfield performance I've seen in football this season.
You said it.
I will continue to say it. Those two boys, Joao Neves and Vitinha, they look like prime Xavi and Iniesta. Those boys were the reason why Liverpool lost both games, or why Liverpool lost across both legs, right? And if they play the way they played against Liverpool, Villa don't stand a chance. They don't stand a chance. Yeah? Now, this is why I say Luis Enrique might now come and decide to tweak with that midfield and say, you know what, maybe something here, something, and it does something different. If he does that, is at his own. Do you understand? That's where I'm worried, because I know the kind of person Luis Enrique is. He might overthink things and not just go with that same 3-man midfield that he started off with. Right? But if everything stays standard conditions, I think PSG win this one.
Okay. All right. So I think so too. So Yinka, we're gonna
Yes, sir.
do a couple more things. There's a couple games outside of the Champions League. Bayern versus Dortmund coming up, and
Yeah.
Newcastle versus United. Uh, talk about either of them or both of them.
No, so I'll just run through
Um,
both of them. Bayern Dortmund, I think it's going to be a win for Bayern. If Bayern are really serious about winning the Bundesliga, they can afford, right, to drop points against Dortmund. But you know
yeah,
what?
no, they can't.
This is the biggest ticket game in the Bundesliga. This is, you understand.
Yeah,
This is the top, right? So
yeah,
forget form in this kind of games. Anything can happen. Yeah. But I
yeah.
expect Bayern to win this. I'll be watching this. Then
Bayern at home, right?
Bayern are home to Dortmund. Yes, they are home.
Oh,
They are home. And this is sandwiched between the two Bayern Inter games. So I expect
yeah.
Bayern to
That's
also be
tough.
careful. So that's why this might be a tough one.
That's tough.
And the
Injuries,
Newcastle United.
suspensions, yeah, all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And the Newcastle United bid, I mean, that's I looked at the Premiership fixtures. That's the only. Why are we even talking about this? United they've been horrible,
they've been poor.
right?
We
They've been
keep
poor.
trying to talk about them as a real team, but they're not.
But they're
There's
not.
one guy maybe who's been worth watching. Their captain. That's it this season.
Yeah,
You know.
and the left back Dogu. I apologize to the young man.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with his game. But he's no, I'm serious. He's been decent. Other than that, I just think Newcastle. There's a lot on hanging on Newcastle qualifying for the Champions League, right? If
Yeah.
they make the Champions League, Ishak ain't going nowhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bruno Grimares ain't going nowhere. They will even then have more money to go buy players. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah. So I think that's the importance in the game. I think Newcastle win that one. I think they're going to beat United. Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Good.
Inka, we're gonna move very quickly to a lightning
Yes, sir.
round, and we
Yes.
had one question on here, but I'm gonna throw a second one on
Okay.
that we'll now pick up next week and do more justice next week. So,
Okay.
is Raphinha even the best player at Barca this season?
So this is like a follow up to the discussions that we've been having
Yeah,
around Raphinha being
yeah,
up for Ballon
Raphinha.
d'Or. So
Yeah,
it was, you know, so for me, it's not as crystal clear. I would argue that Lamine Yamal has been their best player this season. Yeah. So you guys, people want to follow stats to some extent, right? Um, I always say stats don't lie, but they don't tell you everything. Yeah.
they tell you
Uh,
something, but they don't tell you everything.
they don't tell you everything. So the highest goal scorer in La Liga is Lewandowski. The highest assist giver in La Liga is Lamine Yamal.
By a
However,
lot, I think. By a lot.
I think it's by three or so. I think
Okay.
he has 11, and the next person has 8. Um,
Mm.
but now here's the thing. Raphinha is in top 5 in both categories, and I think he's the only one in top 5 in both categories. Yeah. But even if we move away from that and we go to what they call there's a La Liga Player of the Month, right? Um, I think the La Liga Player of the Month this year, 2024, yeah. Raphinha has won it once. Lamine Yamal has won it once. Lewandowski has won it once. Lewandowski has won it once. Yeah. So that's what we're dealing. That's what we're dealing with here. So you look at those three and you're like, can I really pinpoint one person? Because at three, if I break this season that is ongoing now into three parts, the early part of the season was the Lewandowski episode. The second third, I can give that to Raphinha. Right now, Lamine Yamal is the one carrying Barcelona. Let's just call it what it is. Yeah. So for me, it's not as crystal clear. I'll still say it's 1A, 1B Raphinha, Lamine Yamal. But you can also look at some players like Pedri. Pedri's been injured for a while. He came back in the Champions League round. He won Player of the Match against was it Benfica that they played? I can't even remember. He was the man of the match in both games.
Yeah.
And Pedri's been playing very well. So right now I can say over the past 2 or 3 weeks, the best player in Barcelona has been either Lamine Yamal or Pedri. All this just points to the fact that they have a very, very good team, and the team is playing very well. And one other thing, Rafinha's exploits in Brazil has been very poor. very, 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 very poor. Yeah. But hey, it is what it is. So to answer your question, I think it's 1A, 1B. I can still say it's Raphinha, but I think Lamine Yamal is very, very, very close. Even if not the best player in back.
Yinka.
Yes, sir. What
When
have
you
I
when
done
you
this
have
time around?
when you have a bias, right? It's so obvious. Like it's so obvious,
So what's my
which
bias here?
is your bias is you don't fancy the dude, and that's okay, Raphinha. So let me say it this way: we don't
But
have a lot of time.
that is so far from the truth. That's
Okay,
so far from the truth.
okay,
I'm
okay. But hold
serious.
on, hold
So
on,
when
hold
he was
on.
at Leeds, hold on now. When he was at
Okay, go for it.
Leeds,
Yeah,
wasn't I the one clamoring that this guy is arguably one of the best players, not even in Leeds in the Premier League?
I don't know if you said he was one of the best
I
players in the
did.
Premier League.
I did.
Okay, okay. I
I
don't remember,
did.
but okay.
So I've still said he's the best player. I still said he's the best player in Barca right now. I've not said he's Lamine Yamal. You didn't. So why?
Okay.
So I don't see where the bias is. Anyway, you go
Okay.
ahead.
So here's what I would say, right?
Yes.
Once every, I don't know, maybe even generation, you have like a Maradona fronting, the Mexico 86 team for Argentina, where it's just so much better than anyone else on the team, right?
Yeah.
Not quite a one-man team because one-man team don't win in football, but not quite a one-man team, but so much better than everyone else. Or
Mm-hmm.
Maradona on the Napoli team that won Serie A, or Messi on the last Argentina World Cup team, once in a generation, you know. But for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
when you have a successful team over a 38 game season, you have many candidates for player of the year, right? Let me go to the club I support, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Bukayo Saka is the best player, is the most important player. He hasn't won player of the year for Arsenal in the last 2 seasons. Right?
Okay.
He hasn't won. Yeah, I believe Odegaard might have won, if
No,
not
no, go
twice in
ahead.
a row. Yeah. So my point is, when you're very successful,
Mm-hmm.
it's customary to
Mm-hmm.
have that debate of, was he this guy or was it that guy? We had the Foden, Rodri, other people for City, right? The
Yeah.
season before, the same thing. That's how you know you have a good team, right? And in today's world, over 38 games, it's really, really, really hard to be a one-man team and have any real level of success. So it's not unusual that we're having the Lamine Yamal, Raphinha, Lewandowski, someone in midfield conversation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it now comes down to who has done it for the longest over those 38 games. You don't have to have played all 38, but who
Mm-hmm.
has done it the longest at the highest level for the longest period of time. It
Mm-hmm.
could be that is Lamine Yamal, right? What I would say about Raphinha is highs have been very high, right? But
Mm-hmm.
we don't talk about his not lows, but his mids. It's just one of those. It's just one of those players because of the energy he plays with. When he
Yeah.
has an okay game, you just don't talk about it. So we pretend like there was, let's say he's had 10 great games during the season, right? But at the end of the season, they would have played 38, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe it was a 6 or 7 out of 10 for most of the other 28. But we don't talk
Mm-hmm.
about that. And
Mm-hmm.
Lamine Yamal is the kind of guy that just, and then boom, you will have one great moment or whatever. And then you have a guy like Kubasi, I don't think he was there all season, but this second half of the season, been pretty incredible. And you're right about Pedri or whatever, and you're right about Lewandowski. So I'm actually kind of supporting what you're talking about. I
Mm-hmm.
think overall, when you balance it all out, you would have to say that Raphinha has probably, it's been like kind of the soul of this team this season because of the energy he plays with.
That,
Whether it's the best, I don't know.
that I agree with. That
Yeah,
I agree with. Yeah. The energy, even when he was giving the captain's handband,
I,
the
I still
you
can't
know,
believe they did that. I still can't believe they did it, but it was the
But I
right
can't
decision.
fault it.
I
It
can't
was the
deny
right
it.
decision.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was the right
Yeah.
decision. I can't fault that. But let's see how the season pans out. Let's see how the
Okay.
season pans out and see what
Okay.
happens. So you said you had
So
a second question.
it's about Chelsea. And I think we should do it next week, but it's really the nonsense going on with their financial fair play, selling assets to themselves to get out from under the thumb of the regulators. I've never seen anything like it before. It sounds so bad on so many levels. And we were right, as in how bad of a hole they were in before doing all the shenanigans. We know we're not crazy. Like, how do you buy all these players? So I think we should, unless you want to say something real quick
No,
about
no,
it.
no. I
Otherwise,
think it's best.
yeah.
It's best we push it to next week so we can dive
Okay,
into
we'll
more
push it to next
details.
week.
I can actually get a slide, go through their financials and the rest
Okay.
of it, so people understand what we're talking about. But just to quickly buttress your point, Akin, these guys knew about this loophole. They knew. That was why they were comfortable. That was why they were confident in doing the nonsense that they were doing. I told you. I said they must have been aware of a loophole in this whole
Something.
stuff. Something.
Yeah.
They must have a leeway to say, this is how we're going to get out of this mess, if there's a mess in the future. I didn't, well, maybe I was, that's why they are there and I'm on this other side. Yeah, because it sounds very, very dubious, Akin. But hey, what do I do?
They started from selling hotels and doing buying hotels and doing all kinds of stuff. It's always something with Chelsea.
And for all you know, they bought 2 young players that are coming in next season already. They bought 2 players from Sporting Lisbon,
I know.
Already.
Oh, is it 17 and 18?
Yeah. One winger and one defensive midfielder. I'm like, you don't have enough
Unbelievable.
defensive midfielders? You have Enzo, you have Caicedo, and I understand the Saudis are in for Caicedo for a ridiculous amount of money.
You have Lavia. You have Lavia. You don't
need... have Ugochukwu. You have... Anyway, let's leave Chelsea. We'll do a deep dive on Chelsea's accounts next week.
All right, Inga, we have come to the end of our show for this week, our 57th episode. Welcome back, Inga.
Thank you very much.
It's good to see you. Do you want to wrap up and then we can be done?
So thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the engagement across all our social media platforms. We really, 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 really do appreciate. Like we say, we're still on track to 1,000. We're looking forward to that 1,000 because that will be a landmark for us on YouTube. As Akin will always tell me, I should clarify on YouTube, because across other social media platforms we're both at. Baby steps, still baby steps, but we'll continue to do this and we'll continue to evolve and we'll continue to try as much as possible to bring you the best content from a sporting perspective. But once again, guys, thanks for the support. Please continue to share whenever you come across any of our posts across any platform. Tell your friends about us, engage us, send us questions, and we're more than happy to engage in those questions. And let us know what else you want us to talk about. We're more than happy to do that. So thanks, guys. Really do appreciate. And we will see you next week. Akin?
All right. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next week, and we're out.
Out.